All right, so this is the demonstration for activity 2 for investigation 1. What we have here is we have two objects, two balls with the same mass. They both have a mass of 28.20 grams. What we are going to do is we are going to take each of these balls and we are going to drop them from the same height, okay? We are going to notice the speed in which they fall, and we are going to look at the overall crater size that is created by the flower, as well as the distance that the flower travels. We will actually measure that distance for you, and you will take a look at the next clip and actually get those results. But first, we're going to show you the actual demonstration of these objects falling into the flower. So Mr. Gilbert's going to take the metal sphere that has 28.20 grams. He's going to drop each of them from the same height, and we're going to see what happens. Okay, again, take note of the speed of the object as well. All right, roughly there. So Mr. Gilbert is going to go ahead and mark it. And we're going to do a demonstration again. This is the same mass. Okay, same mass, same metal ball. And we're going to see what happens. And for comparison, all right, we're gonna measure them now.
All right, so we're gonna measure the distance from here to the point that I marked, and it's approximately 14 centimeters. And this one is approximately 14 centimeters.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and make sure we actually, so 14.0 centimeters, 14.0 centimeters. So you need to fill in some information about the speed that you notice these objects fall, or you can even talk about what we learned last class about objects that fall, how mass affects what and relates to inertia. You can use some of those ideas. And you can again also talk about the observations of what you saw when it came to the flower piles. What's the difference between them two? Okay, so here's a quick glimpse at the craters. And go ahead and record those results now. All right, everybody, so we are on activity 2 of investigation 1. What happens to energy when objects collide? So what we're gonna do is we have two flower piles right here with the same amount of flour. It was basically 1/3 of a cup of flour on there, 1/3 of a cup of flour on there. We are going to drop these two different balls with different masses from the same height. Okay, so we have a plastic ball that weighs 6.20 grams. We have a metal ball that has a mass of 28.20 grams. What Mr. Gilbert is going to do is he's going to drop the plastic ball on this pile of flour, and we're going to see how far the flour goes. What's going to happen is in the next video or the next part of the clip, we're going to measure how far it goes for each of them. So let's take a look and see what happens when he drops the plastic ball with a mass of 6.2 grams on this pile of flour. All right, Mr. Gilbert, what do you think the farthest part was?
I think the farthest part was right here.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a line right there. And we're gonna come back and measure that, okay? Next, Mr. Gilbert's gonna do the same thing, but this time with our ball with more mass. Okay, so we have this metal ball, which has slightly more mass. There was a big difference there. What do you think the farthest?
It's right there.
All right, so we're gonna come back in this next clip and we're gonna measure the actual lengths that the flower traveled. So We have our awesome unit of measure, and Mr. Gilbert's going to talk about this measuring tape before we actually take the measurements of these.
So there's two sides to it. This is in inches and feet, and then the other side is in the metric system. So, you know, we can simply just say, if I want to measure it in feet, then we can compare our answers with Burma and Liberia, because there's the only 3 countries that use the English Standard System anymore. Or we could be like the rest of the world and use the metric system. So we're going to use the metric system. Okay, so this is going to probably be measured in centimeters. So I'm going to measure from where that crater is.
So the center of the crater, he's going to put his measure tape starting there, and he's going to measure to the line that we drew with the farthest point of the flower.
It looks like it's about 9.6 centimeters.
All right, so 9.6 centimeters. And while Mr. Gilbert's measuring that, I gotta cap this. And let's take a look.
And the other one is, looks like 20.6 centimeters.
So along here, it does have the actual measurements what we gave you, but just look at the overall observational differences. What descriptive differences do you see between these two? Go ahead and fill out the descriptive differences along with the actual length differences now. For our final test, what we are going to do is we are going to have objects with the same mass. The only difference is the speed at which they are dropped. So Mr. Gilbert is going to put some force behind one of these and actually throw it down into the pile of flour. And the next one he's actually going to drop into the pile of flour. So go ahead, Mr. Gilbert, choose your weapon.
I'm going to drop the first one.
You're going to go ahead and drop the first one. So again, this one he is dropping. It is from the same height. The only thing he is changing is the actual speed, okay? He's going to throw one, and the other he's going to drop. Let's go ahead. Where do you think is the overall average?
I think the furthest part was right here.
I was thinking the same thing. All right. So this one might take a few tries because this is actually very challenging to do. But Mr. Gilbert is actually going to throw this from the same height.
There we go.
There we go. So, nice shot, Mr. Gilbert. So we have this and we have this. When we come back in our next clip, we're actually going to take the measurements of these two. Mr. Gilbert's just replacing it back in that crater so you guys can actually see. All right, when we come back, we're going to measure these.
All right, so we're going to measure the distance that this made the splat mark, and it looks like it's about 11 centimeters.
Okay, so let's go ahead. So the one that was dropped was 11. Okay, that's a 1. And
We'll measure the other one here. Looks like it is about 20, we'll just say 25 centimeters, 25.0 centimeters.
all right, so this one was thrown. 25, Mr. Gilbert?
Correct.
All right, so using all this information you've gathered, you should be able to answer a few questions, okay? Make sure you answer the questions at the bottom of this worksheet, and then we're going to move on to Concord interactions. Questions 2 and 3 on activity 2. We're going to work on those next.